Hello, gentlemen. For the viewers out there, we are here today with Marcus Brown and Dekoven Riggins of Notis Studios. That is Notis Studios. You two are partners, but do you have a third partner as well?
We do. Dr. Richard Osei works pretty much on all of our websites and technical side of things, our streaming platform, servers, computers. He takes care of all of that.
Excellent. Yeah, it's extremely important to have somebody who's really savvy on the back end, to keep everything running. Mm-hmm. I'm glad to have you guys here. So you did an interview with us that's going to come up in our series. We do these interviews where we ask entrepreneurs a similar set of questions, and then our viewers will be able to kind of see those interviews and compare the answers to the same questions, and then get a lot of insight. Because we believe there are so many approaches to doing business. So we want to get as many different experiences as possible. And so I really want to say thank you for coming in and doing that.
Well, thank you for having us.
And I'd like to explore some of those answers a little bit more and dive a little bit more into the history. So first of all, some things that struck me here was you said that the learning curve that you guys had was mostly through the what you called YouTube University. Yeah. So my question to you is how much of what you do have you really learned through the internet and through YouTube and other resources that you found on the internet? And how much of what you do did you learn from people who were already filmmakers?
Yeah, so as far as filmmaking goes, I'd say almost 90, if not 100% of it has been from offline courses or YouTube itself. MZ is a course that we've used. The friend that were introduced to within the past few years, more so on the business side of filmmaking and some of the, say the loftier or larger projects, studio ownership type things, what that looks like, and just being exposed to like the larger industry and that. But when it comes to filmmaking, pretty much everything has come from offline. We didn't go to school for this directly, but we dove into school for this when we got online and really took it serious that we wanted to be filmmakers. After we made our first our first short film, and we were going into our first feature, we started soaking up everything we could find on YouTube. And then, like I said, we purchased MZ, which is like a library of courses that deal with several different things of filmmaking. And so, yeah, I'd say almost everything that we learned had come from offline.
Okay. So when you say offline, do you mean like
Off the internet?
Yeah, like actually just doing it, or from
Watching a course, reading something, picking up the camera,
Practical application,
going and applying it.
Okay, and then like for the MZ courses, so you said that's like courses that you pay for, right? Are you including that in the offline? Is it not for free, or?
Yeah, so it's not free, but it's pre-made courses, like video workshops of people who were, I guess they paid to go to this workshop, but the workshop was filmed, and so you get
Excellent. That's what I was getting at. So it's kind of like a master class.
Kind of like a master
that you
class.
have access to.
You have access to, yeah.
Through your subscription.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's amazing. I've done a few of those, not taught them, but attended them for leatherworking, so I can understand that.
Yeah. So we got to watch the videos of the people who attended, and then to me, you can't say it's just as good as being there, because you might have a question in a moment and you can't ask the person because you're watching the video. So, but for the most part, yeah, just watching, learning.
So that leads me into another question then, because one of the things that you guys said in the interview is that you want to build a community for independent filmmakers in Oklahoma. You said there are currently a lot of filmmakers in Oklahoma, or independent filmmakers, but is little to no community.
And I'll clarify on what he means. So we have a film community. We just don't commune enough and really work together. Kind of, it's very splintered. So we may know a few people. We talk to them. We know there's other filmmakers over here and over there. They know that there's other filmmakers around. Well, we kind of coalesce with our group of people that we already know. What we're saying is there's not enough of us mixing those groups together enough to where film could really elevate here, because we all have different resources, different skills. And you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you want it.
But so the film community, it's a community. We come together for film festivals. We come together for premieres. We come together for a lot of different things. But when it comes to just working together a lot and really saying, okay, this is who you go to for this is who you go to for that, it's not as cohesive as it can be.
Okay, so I get that. So what you're saying, I think, is that there should be more of a directory and basically qualified information about who to go to for different things, who you can call on, basically like a resource directory.
And relationally,
Right.
We need to really just come out of our shells. A lot of people are awkward. Just come out of our shells and talk to each other seriously and get to be in relationship with each other, knowing each other, so that we feel comfortable on just picking up the phone and say, hey, I'm going to reach out to this person or that person. I'd say probably more so in that vein. You can share the experience that you had at Dead Center, and I know where this stems from a lot, yeah.
Yeah, so I went to Dead Center Film Festival, and there's the newer filmmakers got to sit down with studio heads and people like us and really just talk to us. And while I'm there, they're all saying the same thing, especially the Oklahoma filmmakers, is they've been wanting to talk to us, but they didn't know how to get in touch with us, or they heard this or they heard that. So there's conversation, but no one knows how to get a hold of anyone from the new generation. And then the older generation, like I know a great gaffer. So I'm only going to deal with that one gaffer that I know that's great. But there's other ones as well. So if someone comes to me and says, do you know a good gaffer? It's like, well, I know this one, but I'm using him on this film. But then there's like 10 other ones that I've never bothered to even get to know to give you anything. So
Rooftop.
Yeah.
What happened?
And then so we had this big, so they had, a rooftop gathering right before Dead Center began. And it was just huge. It was massive. And it's the film community. And you just saw pockets of people in little sections, because those are the people you know. But everybody's a filmmaker. And me as a filmmaker, I'm like, I don't know any of these people. And then like I may know 6 or 7, and I'll talk to them. And then I was like, well, I guess I can leave now because I don't know anyone else.
So I can understand that to a large degree, because I'm kind of a wallflower myself. When I go to conferences, or I go to trade shows and things like that, it takes a little bit of liquid courage for me to become more outgoing and start talking to people. But usually I'll just hang back. I'll kind of float around, listen a little bit, However, when I'm online, I'm a lot more talkative and I'm a lot more thoughtful. And I try to help people that, need help. So I was going to ask you guys, is there any kind of online community that's focused on Oklahoma?
Now, I know there's Facebook groups and forums and things like that. And I know there are talks of a directory being put together.
With Oklahoma Film and Music.
Well, Boiling Point, I think, was heading that as far as one of those last meetings I went to. And we have meetings. We have, Oklahoma City film community meetings with the Oklahoma Film Office. And I don't know if the state film office has had any meetings. They have events, but and then there is a directory on the Oklahoma Film Office website, Oklahoma Film and Music.
And you have IMDb as well, but you got to know who you're looking for.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think there's necessarily a directory problem. Just we got to stop being so introverted and get out and talk to people and actually mingle. And yeah,
because most of the from that rooftop party, most of the interaction started with, because I will admit I was eavesdropping quite often, was I haven't seen you since this project or that project. So we don't really interact unless we see each other on set.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, okay, so there's no real like, okay, so on, once a month, the film community gets together and we have these rooftop parties and, what are you working on? Nothing. Oh, well, I got this, and we just go from there. So I think that would be great for our community.
Yeah.
Okay. So from a business standpoint, do you find that trying to find resources like gaffers or particular skill sets takes up a lot of your time, or is it to the point where you've formed a group that you kind of know where to go?
Yeah. I think we have our core group, and even if we need to step outside, I think we know enough people that we could say, hey, do you know somebody? Do you know somebody? That part's easy. Hardest part in our industry is finding the money, which is probably the hardest part in every industry, is getting to money to make projects happen. And so that's probably where people spin their wheels the most, just trying to find the money to make your project.
So that's a very good topic, because as I was listening to your interview, one thing you said that really struck me is that every department is itself its own business. But the business aspect of this, as you said, is finding the money. Now, I know that we asked you, how you were funded, and you guys said that you're self-funded, and that you've not experienced anything like bankruptcy or I don't want to get too deep into your finances here, but I do know that from my own personal experience that I have been close to bankruptcy. It happened to me when a big distributor decided to play games and delay their order, and we had been counting on their order, and so it left us with like a 4-month block heading into Christmas with no orders. Because we were afraid to take any other order because we didn't want to block them. And it got to the point where I had to go and buy a van and basically go door to door to rebuild the business after they finally, decided they weren't going to buy from us anymore. And so I know the frustration and the feeling that came with that. So I'm glad that you guys have not experienced that yet, and I hope you never have to.
And this year might be a year of challenge for us. Having a contract have to be scaled back because of budget for work that we're doing could be a very challenging time for us, but we've always gotten to the next thing, I guess, a little bit ahead of schedule before we end up in a position where I don't know what we're going to do, right? And so God willing, that continues, and that we actually hit a peak of growth soon. That would be really nice. But yes, we have not actually gotten all the way to where we like, this is going to be tough. But this coming fall, I mean, if certain things don't pan out, yeah, we could easily be there.
So my question is, in regards to that, when you're going out and you're looking for the money to fund the projects, how much time do you spend doing that? Like,
not a lot. So the projects that we do, and the reason why it costs so much money is because you got to hire people typically. And I say typically because we've positioned ourselves to be able to do most of the work ourselves. We don't necessarily have to hire too many people to work with us, which allows for a lot of budget flexibility. So we don't need as much money as this project does to do the projects that we do. So like 30% of your budget is going to be post-production. We do all the post-production ourselves. We do it all in-house. We distribute ourselves. We don't have a problem with going through and doing these different parts of the business. We are primarily the top of line too. We're the producer, we're the director. We don't have to pay anybody for those things. We typically handle all of our own camera work. So we don't typically have to pay for that. So we cut off a lot of what you would typically need to hire all of these people to do the job. So for us, it just, does the project make sense? Does it fit with a budget that we're willing to either go find the money to do, or we have the money to do, and then we do that. And so I'd say we don't look at our movies right off to be the funding source for us. As far as our business running day to day, this is a thing of where we're going to build up a library, and then eventually that library will be paying us enough over time. But primarily doing contract work for people right now will be the thing that funds
So
the
let's
overall
talk.
business.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So I noticed that that in addition to producing your own projects, you also offer services. You offer rental of your studio. You offer help that people can get a little bit of help for free, I guess you mentioned, and they can get, if they need more than that, you're willing to, to hire yourselves out.
Right. We
on
rent out our
services.
equipment as well.
If right now, what would you say? Would you? How much of your revenue would you say is coming from renting and providing those services versus projects that you have finished that are providing revenue for you?
People hiring us is definitely larger than our own film projects currently. I say our own film projects would probably make up about 10%. Our own film projects make up about 10% of our income, and then us being either contracted out in one way or the other makes up at least 85%.
So y'all have been in business since 2019?
2019, yeah.
So that's relatively short.
It
What are
is.
we at, 5 years now?
5 years,
Do you feel like that your trajectory has been on par with the industry, or have you exceeded what typically happens in the industry, or do you even know what the typical trajectory is in the industry?
I don't know. I don't know if you know what's typical in the industry. Because our path has pivoted and taken, it's kind of not a turn because it's still kind of in the same direction. It's just from a different vantage point. And what I mean by that is we could start out as a hired gun type of company where whoever wants to pay us to produce things for them will do. And that's kind of where we started, to becoming a studio that makes projects, still be hired out, but our focus is we want to make projects that are impactful, that we can build that library out, to then being, we can really move the industry through education and through space for people. Now we're a production company like a Warner Brothers or a Universal, just on a much smaller scale, or a Tyler Perry Studios, just on a much smaller scale, and we can grow into that kind of a space. It's changed. And so now we go from being, just independent filmmakers, we're looking for our next film to make, to now we're studio heads. You could say we reached a certain position in just filmmakers that when we pivoted to become studio heads, we go back down, and now we're trying to climb up that ladder now. But it's still all within the same realm of, we still make movies, but now we listen to other scripts. We can help produce other projects for the sake of our studio. So I can't say where we are with trajectory to that.
Right. No, I understand.
Most of those places they don't put out a lot of information on until they've been in the game for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Like, oh, he started here and then you find out. But yeah, right now I don't know.
So you had mentioned in the interview, we asked, like, what is your big break? And you produced a feature film, and the title of the film is Wall Street Burning or
Black
Wall Street Burning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm just going to let you guys explain to the audience what that's all about for a lot of the people that don't know the history. I will say that from my standpoint, I spent a lot of my schooling in Oklahoma, but I was moving around a lot. But I would say, maybe at least 6 years of my developmental years, I went to school in Oklahoma, and this subject was never taught in any history class that I was in anywhere in the United States.
All of my education, except for my doctorate in Oklahoma, and didn't hear about it. I did learn about it in college, but not from a class. It was just posted in our Black Heritage Library. And that's where I first heard about it and wanted to watch a movie based on it. The only thing I could find was a few documentaries that had been put out. And that was back in like 2006.
So you guys produced a feature film on this. The film is historically based, but you created a story around it. So for the audience that may not know about this, feel free to tell us all about it and what the impetus was for this, what your approach was, and what the success has been, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So the approach to the whole film was to bring awareness to it, because at the time, because we weren't aware, I don't know how we weren't, but we weren't aware of the centennial that was right around the corner. So for us, this is something that's been buried for years and no one's talking about it. So we really wanted to bring awareness to what happened in Tulsa. Even with the story that Dekoven crafted, it was about taking what happened, but let's just hone in on a couple of people and their experience as everything was going on, to show that like these were real people that had real lives, and that we really had to experience everything that happened around this small event. So how we built the movie was showing that just 1 second of distraction could ripple and have an impact on everyone in your community. So it's important at all times to stay focused, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. And so we tried to build it somewhat as a love story.
Yeah.
Where the events that we know happened was a guy by the name of Dick Rowland was working downtown in Tulsa, went into a hotel elevator to where he could use to go to a particular floor in a hotel where he could use a restroom. It's the only place he could go. Something happened in the elevator. I don't think we exactly know what happened. We know that some accounts that were said absolutely didn't happen. But he was accused of several things, from touching a white girl to raping her in the elevator, and which caused for him to be arrested. A mob wanted him. Some Army vets from Black Wall Street, or the Greenwood District, went to protect him, got into a fight with the white mob at the time, and got into a gunfight. And from there was gunfighting all night long. There's a bit of a pause in the gunfighting, but eventually they burned down the Greenwood District. And so from our vantage point, we understand those events. We understand some more of the history behind Greenwood, and how they were very much ahead of the times. They were financially savvy. They knew how to keep money in the community circulating. Because of segregation at the time, they were able to build everything that they needed to sustain themselves. And they were very innovative. And so they capitalized on it. They got wealthy. And so we wanted to portray that, but also dive deep into characters' mindsets, potentially having a disdain for people on the other side, from both sides of the railroad tracks, because it was divided by a railroad track. And we really wanted to, like I said, build a story around it. And what better way for a young man to be caught off guard to potentially touch a white woman in the elevator than to be thinking about a woman that's potentially leaving him and not focused on what's going on in life. So if you check out the movie, it's about a love story that goes wrong because of, as Marcus said, a moment of being unfocused leads to not just a lifetime, but generations of despair.
Yeah, and everyone is based on a real character. So we took their first initials of the first and last name and just gave them different names, but kept their initials.
With a couple of people. Because Fatima was made up.
She was.
So we made up a couple of people to fill in. You got to fill in,
So
but yeah.
would you say that the characters are kind of made up, and you kind of made up the sensibility or the mindset that they might have had,
Correct.
but the actual events as they unfolded, is that fairly historically accurate?
I'd say
as far as you can
some
tell?
of them. And the reason why I say some of them is because, like, we knew that Dick Rowland was a shoe shiner. We don't know, like, his habits outside of that. So who he went to hang out with, we had to fill that in and make it up.
Creative license for that.
Right. So different things like that.
But things that led to the burning. That's
we absolutely
accurate, yes.
went accurate. And of course, the dialogue we made up, just different things like that. So, it's based on real events.
So this is just for the viewers, out there who still might not know what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And please correct me if I say something wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but the Greenwood district in Tulsa was a district that was predominantly black-owned businesses. The community had built up a great business community where they were investing in themselves. They were keeping the money in their community. If one didn't know that they were in America, for example, that district could have been any shopping district, any normal business district anywhere else in the world,
Actually, it would have been probably more lavish and more thriving than most in the world at the time. Yeah.
So that whole district over this incident ended up basically being burned to the ground. And if I remember right, didn't they actually even bomb some of the buildings?
Yes. So the National Guard and some other people, they were dropping Molotov cocktails out of the airplanes, yes.
So this is also referred to in some places as a Tulsa race massacre.
Yes.
I think it's important that we say that, that it's not just the destruction of all the property and businesses, but do we even know how many people died?
So right now they're at 300, but it's still going up.
Yeah, and if I remember right, there for a long time there was even a push in Oklahoma not to teach this. Like not only did they not mention it, they went out of their way to bury it. Yeah.
When you think about what happened and the fact that the first time bombs were ever dropped in this country, it was by Americans. Yeah,
that was the first time that we ever used bombs in this country?
On ourselves.
Dropping bombs, yes.
Wow.
But I think when we look back and think about it, the biggest thing to me that stands out, loss of life, loss of property, which you can't get back unless they give it back, but certain things in the insurance they put to where they couldn't get it back.
Mm-hmm.
And then just loss of generational wealth. Tulsa would be, in my estimation, if not greater than what Atlanta is to African Americans today, right here in Oklahoma, meaning generational businesses that have spread across the country. Interning would be at an all-time high in Tulsa from an African-American standpoint. And just, literally a Black Wall Street type of ordeal going on there because of the legacy that they had. But
what is the impact of this in your estimation? So I know that you said the film came out right when COVID started, and you guys got a lot of requests. You did a lot of Zoom interviews, but you were precluded from going to a lot of places in person and talking about it. What has been the impact both to you all as businessmen, as men of faith, and socially in a broader sense that you have noticed?
Good question.
I'd say in a broader sense, we got to be a part of many people who have shined a light on the subject. And so we've got to witness certain things that were tremendous, even in that certain amount of time. One specific instance, getting to meet with the chief of Cherokees, and their apology for their role in slavery here in Oklahoma and abroad was tremendous. To see Black and white people come together and heal, cry over this film together, and to recognize, although we're not 100% where we want to be, we are growing in that direction as a nation. It gives me great pride and hope for the future with having children, of what can be and what they can aspire to. And I think just being a part of something that's rooted in a place where I grew up in Oklahoma, and being able to carry that around the world has made a tremendous impact on myself, because I never thought that this was something that I would be doing. But to be used in this way by God has been, again, amazing. It's been an amazing journey.
Yeah, all that.
All right. It's a good thing when partners agree.
Yeah.
The projects that you guys are looking at, I really was resonant with you when you said that you really find a lot of joy in creating. I myself got to a point way back when I started. I was doing custom Q cases, and I had an order book that was fairly thick, about 100 or so orders. But one day I woke up and I realized that I was really working for everyone else. I hadn't created anything that I had in my mind for a long time. When you guys are thinking of projects that you want to do, are you thinking of looking for social projects to bring awareness to things that have historically been oppressed in terms of, or suppressed is probably the better word for that? Or is your range broader? Are you looking like more entertainment? Like you mentioned Tyler Perry a while back, where I'm not totally familiar with Tyler Perry's total catalog, but I think I understand that there's a lot of comedy. There's some comedy horror, stuff like that. Is your range kind of that broad, or is it more specific?
I say we have a broad range. Like we're trying to get into everything, but our focus tends to always be on shining light on Oklahoma stories. Whether it's Deep Deuce, whether it's Black Wall Street, we talk to people, we find out different stories about things that have been buried in our state, or things that may have happened that was that's culturally relevant. So we're all about shining a light on those things that have been kept in the dark for too long.
Yeah, definitely. We're twofold. Like, especially after Black Wall Street, we say, okay, there's a need here for us to tell these stories, so we're going to keep doing it. But we also like fantasy. We like all kinds of things. So, whatever comes to mind, we want to try to make if we can. So we got a lot of different scripts of all kinds of different scripts, doing all kinds of different things from all genres. But we're also going to do this too. So we're going to be twofold.
So do you get scripts from people outside they send them into you, or how do you?
Sometimes, but we write.
Yeah.
You're writers? Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. That's what I didn't know. So as we talked about before, Turtlesmith is dedicated to helping small businesses primarily start and grow. We also feel like that there will be a lot of good advice for businesses that already exist. I myself am an example of basically doing it the wrong way. So my friend used to joke with me and say, "You're a 25-year startup." And having met Scott, my accountant, who is really business-minded, really entrepreneurial, is helping to set me on the right path to now, after 25 years of actually being in business, to realize that the success that we've had has been primarily because of the quality of the product that we build. And I know that you guys both said that quality is extremely important, the output, what finally comes out, and doing your best. I can echo that and say that I know that a quality product has carried me over a lot of the hurdles and bumps and mistakes that rightfully should have put me out of business a lot of times. What kind of challenges have you faced, unexpected challenges, from the time you started until now that you didn't think of before you actually started the business?
I'll go back again and say how expensive it is. And what I mean by that is just thinking back to when we were doing Black Wall Street and how our computers were struggling, really struggling. And we thought we had decent systems until we started doing the work. And then it was like, man, we got to upgrade this equipment that we thought was good enough. And then after upgrading the computers, it was like, we need way more storage. Now we have to get a larger, and that's just kind of been a continuous thing. The better we get and the more things that we get involved with, it seems that the expense can grow. So we've on like our third computer upgrade as far as like, not that the system is like,
not that it wasn't doing what
terrible,
it needed to,
but it's like we have to get better performance out of our systems in order for us to work more efficiently.
Yeah.
And so I'd say that was one of the things. It's like, where do we spend money? Where's going to be most efficient? And really sitting down and trying to forecast that as the trends are going. I think if we would do that, we would probably make some stronger decisions to have the equipment we need for the next 5 years instead of the equipment we need for like the next year or two or the next 10 years worth of equipment in some of these areas. And so I think that has been a challenge for us because we've been fortunate enough that we hadn't lost anything significantly before it was out. So like we did have a thing that happened with our server, one of our projects that we had already put out, but we lost the footage for all of that project. So if we ever want to go back and do anything, it's gone. We can't, but the finished product, we still have it. And so we're lucky that way. And then we're lucky this time. But I think future planning is something that we really have to be aware of and aware of what's coming so that we don't find ourselves in the middle of a project and we lose everything. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'd definitely say it was you're never a master at this. I thought in the beginning, we'll take these courses, we'll learn, and then you know everything. You're great. You can become a master at this. Not understanding if you're not doing this every day, you will see that every day something changes, or there's a new program out, or they've updated this, or there's another way to color grade, another way to edit, a new form. So the great thing about this industry that we're in, it's never stagnant. It's always evolving. It's always changing. So you, as a filmmaker, need to be the same way. You have to, as Bruce Lee said, be water, my friend. It's important. And I didn't know that at first. I just thought, okay, we'll take these courses, I'll learn it, and I will know everything. False. So yeah, that would be my biggest thing that I wasn't expecting, is that you're in school for the rest of your life when you get into this business. But it's fun, so it's great.
That's a very good point, actually. And corporate America actually invests a lot of money in ongoing training. And small businesses often don't. And it's not necessarily because small businesses don't want to, the people in the business. It's often because they find themselves just strapped for time.
Yep. And because you don't. Because typically in small business, you are the laborer and the oversight. So in corporate America, you may have a CEO, CFO, COO that can meet about the future plans. They can meet about what's coming and still have the workers working. When you're a small business, you're both. And so you're working and you have to think about what's coming next. And if you don't have a team, if you don't have partners, if you're just, the solo act in there, then it makes it really, really tough to do all of it and keep up with it.
Do you both have distinct roles in your business?
Yes. From an operating standpoint, Marcus handles all things that come with editing, color, video-wise. I handle all things that come with sound. When it comes to business-wise, I'd say I've operated probably more so as the CEO of the company. And the technical sides of things, we relate to Osei, but we kind of all add our different expertise. So because he's dealing more so with video, he's learning more about what's coming up, what's going on here, what's doing there. Same for me with sound. With computers, we all kind of just pitch in and talk about, well, what do we need here? What do we need there? Strategy, I typically deal a lot with the business strategy, projecting where we need to be going in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years. And just try to dream big and let these guys know, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What are your thoughts? How do you think we can get here? How do you think we can do this? And we put it to paper and see if we can make it.
How do you handle disagreements?
Those don't happen that often.
I mean, we just talk about it, like really. And I think one of the things we do a lot, we have a lot of biblical discussions. And so we disagree sometimes in that way. And we've been doing this before we started this business. So I guess it just kind of makes it easier for us to do this when we're in business and either see a point or, have to come with, the facts of the matter, or this looks like a good idea versus that. And I don't know, we don't get stuck to where it's like, no, it's going to be this way or that way. It just doesn't get stuck like that. I don't know.
I think our argument style is, it's just like how when we debate the word, bring your argument, your entire argument.
Present it.
And then why you think this is better than my argument, and then we'll decide.
Weigh the facts.
Yeah, and it's like, well, that does make sense. We'll go with that one. Yep. I think, and what I said in the other interview is, what's the goal? Like, is it about my way being the right way, or about the company going forward, or the best product being put out?
And if it's usually, since there's 3 of us, if there's usually 2 against the 1, it's typically the one that usually be like, I mean, if that's how y'all say, okay, let's roll with it and
see what happens.
Yeah.
That's actually very insightful and a good way to go about it. I will tell you from my experience that I've been through a couple sets of partners, and not having the clarity of whose role is what, and staying in your lane, so to speak, while having the ability to suppress your own ego for the health of the company and the long-term goals of the company, is a big detriment. It's to the point where this particular partnership is the first one that I have taken on in 20 years after getting out of the bad partnership where we ended up with a literal too many cooks, situation.
And that's, I think, another thing that you said, like, we really don't operate with ego very much. Not that we don't have them. I mean, I think everybody has a little bit of an ego, but we're able to put it aside because we understand we all want what's best for the company. And so let's look at this objectively and see if this makes sense or not make sense, and then we make a decision together.
Yeah, we tend to remember that, one, we didn't put us together.
We didn't.
This came together when we were at church, when we were on a fast, and God told us to get together and do something. So if we can all understand that we didn't put us together, that we didn't set this in motion, and that we're not in control, it's kind of hard for me to then try to run things.
Yep.
So it makes it easier.
So yeah, I we got to kind of wrap this up. I know you guys are pressed for time. So I am extremely grateful that you guys have come in and shared your story with us.
Thank you for having us, man.
Pleasure.
You brought back some nostalgia with this one.
Yeah, the Blockbuster.
Spent a lot of time in that place.
Well, nowadays you won't have to worry about your video cassette being on their shelves, but virtually you got the whole world.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for coming in again. And would you guys like to give any advice to our audience, something that they could take with them when they go home?
Yeah, don't be discouraged. You're going to go through hardships. You're going to go through hard times. Nothing comes easy, but everything comes one step at a time. So whatever you're doing, stick with it. Those who quit are the ones who fail. If you don't quit, you won't fail.
Yeah, and for me, it's do what you love and love what you do.
Excellent advice.
You'll never work a day in your life.
Excellent advice. Well, Marcus, Dekoven, thank you very much. For everybody else, remember Notis, Notis Studios.com. If you're in Oklahoma, I would suggest you contact them if you got a project that you want to work on. They appear to have a really great studio. And just another celebration of another great and growing business. And we look forward to you guys building the community that you want to see. And thanks a lot again.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.